Welcome to Lovelace Academy, third module of Plutus Experience. In this module, we're gonna start our first web app application using PureScript and UtxOs. But before we start, please let me show you some useful informations. If you need any help with this, you can reach us on Lovelace Academy Discord, on Stack Exchange using the tag Lovelace Academy, and also you could ask for some support on Plutomonicon, and you could also get some other community supports. The links are in the channel description and also in our. What you should know before we start this, you should already have watched the PureScript Foundations from Module 2. You should also be familiar with HTML and also JavaScript DOM. So I have placed links here if you're new to this, so you can check there. Before we move on, let's not forget that you can subscribe to this channel to receive notifications about news videos on those modules. Please click the bell to receive also notifications, and leave your comment here, share with your friends or the devs that might find this useful. Infix operators. So in PureScript, we have a nice feature, it's also in Haskell, which is this infix operators. It allows us to define custom operators so we can simplify a lot the usage of expression, the building of expressions in the language. So in this case, let's see, we have a small game here. This game is well known as Rochambeau. I don't know if it's spelled that correctly, but it basically is a game of rock, paper, and scissors, and where we have like rock wins the scissors, scissors wins the paper wins the rock. Yeah, that's basically the Rochambeau games. So we need to place this logic here somehow in the game. So I have used here the log function as before, but I'm using a new function here called assert tick. And if you take a look at this function assert tick, it comes from test assert. Let's take a look this type signature of this function in PureScript. So it takes a string, a boolean, and returns a fact unit. So this is the same type as log. So it represents the side effect on the real world. Okay. So this function is doing is throws a runtime exception with the specified message string. Okay. When the boolean value is false. So we check if we evaluate if some value is false. If that's true, we throw a runtime exception with the string. Okay. So a search here. As before, we have do notation here. You don't need to care about the do notation right now. Just imagine that we are going to evaluate what each function, its step a function. Okay, so each time a function, we're going to assert first this one, then this one, this one, then this one, then finally log success. If anything wrong happens in this series of functions calls, the execution is by the program itself. The execution is aborted, right, with the runtime exception. So assert here takes the first string, which should be the error. Okay, so in case of error, it should throw this, and the error should be scissors should win paper. As we know, this is the logic of the Rochambeau, so I'm using the dollar sign operator, which represents just a parenthesis between all these fractions, the same thing. This expression under parenthesis and the dollar sign represents the same thing. Okay. So scissors should win paper. So we evaluate if scissors here, it's this type constructor for Rochambeau. So we evaluate if scissors beats using this beats keyword paper. Okay, so paper type constructor for Rochambeau. So both values from the left side and for the right side are from the type Rochambeau. So those are Rochambeau values. Okay. Uh, and we have these bits, and this is under this special operator here. Okay. And for PureScript, it basically means that we are just calling this function bits as the same way we call infix operator. Okay, so what this mean? We just gonna place this sizer as first argument of this Rochambeau function, this bits function. Sorry. So because sizers is Rochambeau, we're placing Rochambeau value as the first argument of bits function when we place this around this tick. I don't know if this name of this is tick, but you understand what I mean. I'm placing this around this those operators here, and so it basically means that we're passing as the first argument of the bits function the sizer's value for the sizer's returning value, which is Rochambeau. Okay, and the second parameter, which is also Rochambeau, we pass Rochambeau built from the paper type constructor. Okay, and let's see the output of that. It should, if everything here is evaluated as expected. Okay, so if everything here is true. Okay, so here we should have true. Here we should have true. Here we should have true, and here we should have true. If everything is true here, we're gonna have log success. So just to show you that we have a log of success, here it is. Okay, so it basically means that everything here is true. Okay, so it's true that sizers beats paper, so our logic here is working. Okay, let's see the second one. In the second one, let's see first the function implementation. So bits implementation, it has this type signature. So Rochambeau as the first parameter, Rochambeau as the second function argument, and the returning value is a boolean. So in PureScript you have the boolean type, and let's take a look. JavaScript boolean value, constructive values of this type with literals true or false. So you have these literals true or false, which are from boolean type. Okay, so whenever we return true, we need to use those true values, and whenever we're gonna return false, we need to use this false return. Okay, so Rochambeau here receive as first argument sizers. Actually, we are pairing matching. Okay, so we're pairing matching both arguments of the function, so sizers and papers. In this case here, paper and rock. In the second case, rock and sizers. In the third case, and finally for everything else, false. So if the first argument of this function is sizer, and the second argument of this function is paper, we return true. Okay, and when I'm saying this is sizers, but it's actually not the. It's a bit misleading because sizers is actually the type constructor of the type Rochambeau. Okay, not actually the value. The value is gonna be an empty value, because we are pairing mating against the type constructor. You can see the difference. Let me show you, for example, in maybe. I don't know if you're familiar with maybe. I don't know if I showed this before, but maybe data type represents types that allows values that allows nullable values, okay, or values that can have actually nothing inside of it. Okay, so we have the type constructor nothing, which actually does not have anything inside of it, just the type constructor itself, and we have the type constructor just with something inside of it. So we can see that is the same e here. So we have this e here and this e here, which is the content of inside of the maybe. So for example, we could have a maybe of, let me see one example for that. We could have like a JAX request or server request that maybe can answer something, or maybe it can answer nothing because something weird happens between doing the request and receiving the value, for example. Uh, so you could have nothing in just type constructors for a given request, for example. Okay, so but in our case, our Rochambeau here does not have any kind of inside value, so we are just using the type construct uh, as placeholder or type markers, to signalize that okay, this is required only for the matching. You don't need actually the value inside of this type, okay? Or maybe you can also understand that as a value, but a value being just the type constructor, okay? So scissors, paper returns true, paper rock returns true, rock scissors returns true. So we basically build a logic to tells that okay, who is the winner, okay? And you can ask me, but where is the draw? Because what if you have like rock and paper, scissors and scissors? So yeah, I have not handled the those cases where we have a draw to keep things simple now, okay? But maybe in the future we can expand this idea and build a draw solution, trying to introduce some more advanced content with it. Okay. So we have this bits function. It's pretty clear now. Let's see the second line here, the second evaluation, which should also be returned true. Okay. There's something different here. We have paper show loss to scissors. So we're evaluating that, okay, paper should loss scissors. And what we are doing here, we are using this dollar sign, and we are using two dollar signs and not only one, okay? And we are using this not function. This is different from the previous example. And now we are using this operator right here, and this is called an operator. Both characters, of course, okay? So if you take a look here, we have this infix keyword, and we have a number and bits, which is this function here, and we have s. Then we have the same string as here. So what we are doing here is we are creating an alias for this function using this character. So whenever I call this alias or use this operator, the compiler will figure out, okay, you need to use bits function, and I'll fulfill the arguments of this function at the same order that it has been passed here. So if I'm passing paper, because I'm using infix, okay, if I'm passing the value here for paper, this paper is going to be the first argument, okay, this function. And the right side of this operator is going to always be the second, the right value. Or the value after the operator is going to be the second argument. This always happens when you using infix keyword, okay? There are other keywords. There are infix R, L, infix R, and I suggest you to take a look at the Jordan's reference to see the difference. But for a while, infix should be enough to handle every use case you're gonna see, okay? And we have a number here. So infix is pretty similar to just a function, but it has this special meaning of, okay, I'm creating this operator here. And we need to pass to the infix the priority number. And this is totally arbitrary and random picked number. And the less it's I guess the less it's it, and more priority it has. Okay, it is used to decide who uh, what is going to be the arguments of the function. Because for example, here we have two operators. One is the dollar sign, for example. Okay, the dollar sign. Okay, and the other one is this that we have created. So how did the compiler figure out? Okay, I need to use this one first or this one first. So I need to resolve like this, all this here as the left side of this operator, or should I just use this? So what's gonna tell you this to the compiler is this priority number. Okay, I recommend you to check the JAWS reference. There's some standard on defining the community-driven standard. It's not in the compiler in any ways. The picks are totally arbitrary by the community. Okay, so yeah, that's we normally use 4 and 5. Okay, but like I said, you need to test and see how things works with the with other operators to see if it's not messing with some logic. Okay, but normally doing that for a 5 it should be okay. But if you have any questions, like I said, can check the JAWS reference. So we call this the bits function will be called here. The left value is going to be paper, and the right value is going to be scissors. And you can look here, and you're going to see there's no permitting against papers as first argument and scissors as second. So we should have a false value for this bit function. Okay, and that's is why basically I'm passing this to the not function. So I invert the logic. So whatever gonna false here, it should be true, and then we can have this evaluation. So paper should not lost to scissors. So if paper is lost lost into scissors here, this should be true. So this is not. So the true turns out to be false, and this should throw at the runtime. Okay, we have a guarantee that okay the paper should lost to scissors in this test. Okay, in the next evaluation, so we have another. In this case, the basically the same basically the same thing. Scissors should win paper, but we are using another operator. So we are using this one. And you can ask me why you are using this and not that one, just because I want to place paper before, to test if scissor ring in this form here. So we just normally we do that when building paper operators in this form. We try to build the one that goes to the right and another one that goes to the left in these directional operators. Okay, so how could be a function implemented for that? You could just uh, repeat code. You could do that, like have another bits function, and we are doing another bits function which is bitstick here. Okay, and you can see it's the same signature. So we are doing this with bitstick here. It's the same thing, but we are using this flip function. And if you take a look at this flip function from data function, let's take a look at that. From data function, right? It takes, when we have something like this, a parenthesis, it basically means that we are passing a function, or just a single value as a function here. And this function being passed has 2 arguments and returns a 3rd argument here. Okay, and what we are doing is just returning a new function, and we are like flipping the argument. So we are returning a new function where the second argument should be the first, and where the first argument should be the second. So we are flipping the arguments of this function, of this given function, return a new function. So for example, when we have flip append here, passing 1 and 2, we should have the same as append 2 and 1. So, and this should be 21. So it basically shows us that it changed the order of this append function here. Okay. So we are changing the parameters. We're flipping the first with the second in this bit-seek function. So this logic here happens to work with the flipped function on the same way. Okay. What about the remaining game logic? I had not added this here as a test. As far as I know, it should be working. Okay. You could just try to chain paper for rock and scissors for paper, for example, and it should work. Or you could also add the remaining tasks here, for example, and you would have the same result. So a bit of anonymous functions, okay? Let me first evaluate this code. We have log success here as before, so I want to show you that all those evaluations here are working, okay? So we don't have any runtime exception, and all those evaluations returns true. Whatever is doing here, all those evaluations are returned true because we don't have any error log in here, so we don't have any runtime error throwing those messages here. Okay, so let's see. The first one is testing should equal to 100. So we are using this equal operator, and if you take a look at this equal, you're gonna see, oh, it's a operator made by using some function with infix operator. So everything in PureScript is declared before. I mean, excepting the few cases where you're using like keyword and things like that, everything, even the operators, are just functions, okay? So they are first-class citizens. So in this case, the equal operator is data.equal.equal function. So it's actually a function. And this function takes on the right side, the left side, the number 100, and the right side, it's taking thing here. And you can ask me, what is that? Between the parentheses, you're gonna see that we are using arrow. As you saw in case of, we used arrows to parameting, right? A value. And as you saw in the type signature, also arrows correspond to function arguments, like function that receives some type and then returns another type. And actually, if you take a look at the pursuit, and if you search for arrow here, yeah, sorry, this is the module. So if you take a look at the pursuit here, at this pre-module here, you're gonna see there's some type constructor for this arrow function. So the arrow itself is also an operator, which is also a type constructor. Just to show you that, okay, this guy here is also an operator. And we have here as the first character inside of this parenthesis, because everything inside of the parenthesis is an expression, right? So the first guy here is this character here. So this character is always used when you're trying to create an anonymous function. So whenever you're trying to build an anonymous function or a function that you're trying to inline in your code, like here, we're building this function inline, not declaring that somewhere else, and we're just trying to place this function here. We use this character here, and the second value we pass to this character is going to be the argument of the function that is being declared. Okay, so v here is going to be the first parameter of the function, and this function on the right side, so the function implementation should be v plus 90. Okay, this is a function. So here we have in the return of this, we're going to have a function. And you can see this is exactly this thing that we have here. So we have this, the return from this is a function, as you can see here. A function with two arguments, okay? So we have a function here, right here. Actually, we have a function here from number to number, not two arguments, but number to number. So it takes a number and returns a number. So you can see it's a function that takes a number and returns a number. So we have a function that takes a number here and returns also a number evaluated from the plus operator. As you can see, plus is also an operator. You can look for that here. So it's also an operator for add function. As you can see, it has this type signature. So then we have this function here, okay? So it's a function that takes a value and returns another value of the same type. So we have a function here. We can just evaluate a function. It should have an actual value. So we need to apply this function to some argument so we can strip off the value. So we can just apply. So we need to evaluate this function. We can just return this function, right? So we need to evaluate that to some value. So we need to apply this function to some value, so we can replace this v with some value and then sum them together. Sum it with this 90 value here. So we are applying this function to the value 10 here. Okay, so with that, the compiler will say, okay, you're trying to apply this function to this value here, and I will pass that to your function and evaluate the code. Then with the return from this function, we're going to evaluate against the equal function that already has this 100 value, and we're going to evaluate if this 100 is equal to this given value here, which should be, because we are adding 10 with 90 here, it should be also be 100. So this return true, and as you saw here, we are logging success here, so we don't have an error here, so we're okay. The second case here is for this number 5, so it should equal 5, okay? And we're doing one thing more here. We have and I'm showing you here that we can have inline functions. We can have as many functions as we want to have inside of each function. We can have deep inline functions inside of an inline function, or anonymous function, deep anonymous function inside of an anonymous function. So in this case, we have the parentheses here. You can see that the parentheses has two expressions. You can see that the other parenthesis is also a parenthesis, okay? So imagine that we have this first one. So because we are passing 3 here, it means that this parenthesis is a function. And what is inside this function? You can see that, okay, it's 2 being applied to this function here. And what is inside this function? So you're going to see, okay, this is the anonymous function receiving e as argument and returning another function that receives b as argument. And finally, we add e plus b. Okay, so we are passing 2 to the first argument of this function, okay, which is this e here, and this should return a function that adds to 2. Okay, this function that adds to 2, we replace this this first value here. Okay, so this function that is adding to 2, we're gonna also add to 3. So we apply that function to 3, and finally we have the value 5 here, and we can test if this 5 is equal to that other 5, and that should be true, and test is passing. And we can even go further. Here we have a simplified version. I know that the last one was complicated, but let's take a look at this one. Here we have just one single parenthesis, and we are passing in this parenthesis anonymous function taking a and anonymous function taking b, and we are doing the same thing, so a plus b. Okay, and I am applying this function to 2 and 3. So what we're basically doing here is we are evaluating this first expression, and the compiler will know, okay, you need to pass 3 to some function. Which function is that? You're gonna look, okay, it's a function that takes some value and adds that to 2. So we need to figure out which function is that. So we're gonna look at here and you see, okay, it's a function that takes a and b and sum them together. So I can add 2 to that previous value, and I can also add 3, so we can have 5. It's a bit complicated, but it still show you what is happening here, okay? And this is an example of also how querying works in functional programming language, okay? Here we have another more simplified version of that. So we have these parameters, and we are passing 2, and we are applying this function to 2 and 3. So also the same thing. So all those guys are like simplifications of previous expressions, okay? So we are applying this function from the left side to 3, then we are applying also that to 2 and resolving the final value, okay? Here we have should equal to 300, so 300 equal, and I'm using this is another a way of calling infix operator. You can just place the operator under parentheses, okay? And you can ask, you can call that operator as a normal function. So it's just the reverse way of, like, we do that with functions, right? To fulfill the left side as the first argument and fulfill the right left side on the second argument. We can place the operator first under parentheses and apply to this function the first argument as the left side of the operator, and the second argument as the right side of the operator. So this is the opposite of the infix. So we are undoing the infix operation. Okay? So in this case, we are applying 10 to the operator times. So it basically means that we have a function that takes that value and multiply by 10. Okay. And we are getting this function that multiplies by 10, and we are applying to third. So we have this 300 value here. We're doing the same thing here. So we are calling this times, and this parenthesis is also totally optional because it means it does not have intrinsic meaning. I mean, it's just okay. This is an expression inside of parenthesis, so you can just strip that off. And it should be the same thing. So we're applying this 30 and this, we are applying this 10 to times, then taking this function as return and applying that to third value. So we have the 300 value. Okay. So I'm showing you that there are many ways of calling functions, applying functions, have anonymous functions with querying, which is really powerful feature of a functional programming language that allows us a lot of flexibility on calling functions and building expressions on PureScript, and it's also part of Haskell.